The theater lights had dimmed to that perfect darkness, the kind where the screen becomes your entire world. I'd been looking forward to this premiere for months. Limited release, critics raving, the kind of independent film that only played in select theaters. I'd driven 40 minutes to this particular cinema because it was the only one within 100 miles showing it. The opening credits were just beginning when I heard it. A voice, loud and grating, cutting through the carefully crafted sound design like nails on a chalkboard. "Excuse me. Excuse me. This seat is broken. The cup holder is loose." I tried to ignore it. Around me, other patrons shifted uncomfortably. We were all doing that thing where you pretend nothing is happening, hoping the problem resolves itself. The voice belonged to a woman 3 rows ahead of me, her blonde highlights visible even in the darkness as she stood up, hands on her hips. "I paid good money for this ticket. Someone needs to fix this immediately." An usher appeared, flashlight bobbing as they hurried down the aisle. I watched as they examined the cup holder, whispered something to the woman. She wasn't having it. "That's not acceptable. I want to speak to the manager. Do you know how much I paid for this premium seat?" Premium seat. In this theater, that meant an extra $2 for a slightly wider chair. The usher disappeared, and for a blessed moment, I thought it was over. The woman sat down. The movie continued. Then, not 5 minutes later, she was up again. If you're enjoying this story so far, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Karen Eat World. Trust me, you're going to want to see where this goes. We've got stories about entitled people getting exactly what they deserve, and this one is going to be legendary. Now, back to the theater. "This is ridiculous. That person is coughing. Don't they know they're spreading germs? This is a health hazard." Someone had coughed. Once. A small, polite, muffled into their elbow cough. But Karen, because that's what I immediately started calling her in my mind, was now demanding that person be removed from the theater. The manager appeared this time, a tired-looking man in his 50s who had clearly dealt with this type before. I could hear him trying to reason with her in hushed tones. She got louder. "I don't care about your policies. I am a paying customer. That's what's wrong with society today. Nobody has any standards anymore. When I was younger, people had respect." She couldn't have been more than 45. The movie played on, but nobody was watching anymore. We were all trapped in the Karen show. The manager offered her a refund. She refused. He offered to move her to a different seat. She refused that too. What she wanted, she declared loud enough for everyone to hear, was for everyone else to be silent, perfectly still, and for the temperature to be adjusted because it was too cold. The manager adjusted the temperature. Karen sat down again. I tried to focus on the film, but I'd lost the thread of the plot. Then she started with the commentary. "Oh, please. That would never happen in real life. This actress is terrible. I could do better than that. Why would he go into that building? That's so stupid." People started shushing her. That was a mistake. Karen stood up and turned around, her face illuminated by the screen's glow. "Don't you shush me. I have every right to express my opinion. This is America. Freedom of speech." "Ma'am." The manager was back. "If you can't remain quiet during the film, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." "You can't make me leave. I paid for my ticket. I'll sue. I'll sue this entire theater chain." What happened next was almost beautiful in its inevitability. Karen refused to leave. The manager called security. 2 security guards arrived, both looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. Karen started filming them on her phone, shouting about her rights, about discrimination, about how she was going to blast this theater on every social media platform. The security guards were professional, patient, giving her every opportunity to leave voluntarily. She chose violence. Not physical violence, but the verbal kind, the kind that crosses lines. She started making accusations, calling the guards names, threatening their jobs. That's when they told her the police had been called. Karen's eyes went wide. For a moment, I thought she might finally show some sense. Instead, she doubled down. Good. Call the police. They'll see how I'm being treated. This is harassment. 2 officers arrived within 10 minutes. The movie had been paused. The lights were up. Everyone in the theater was now watching the real-life drama unfold. The officers were calm, professional. They asked Karen to leave. She refused. They explained that she was trespassing now that she'd been asked to leave by management. She argued that she couldn't be trespassing because she'd paid for a ticket. Ma'am, that's not how it works, one officer explained with impressive patience. The theater has the right to remove you for disrupting other patrons. You need to leave now, or you'll be arrested. Karen's face went red. You can't arrest me. I haven't done anything wrong. This is police brutality. I'm being discriminated against. The officers gave her one more warning. She started yelling louder. And then, because the universe has a sense of humor, she made her fatal mistake. She tried to push past one of the officers to get back to her seat. That was it. That was the line. The officers moved quickly, professionally. Karen was in handcuffs before she could process what was happening. This is assault. Police brutality. You're all witnesses. I'm suing everyone. They walked her out of the theater, her voice echoing down the hallway even after she was out of sight. The manager apologized profusely to everyone, offered refunds or free passes to another showing. Most people took him up on it. The moment was ruined. But I stayed. I'd come to see this film, and I was going to see it. Here's the thing about me that Karen didn't know, that nobody in that theater knew. I'm not just a film enthusiast. I'm a film investor. I have a production company. Not a big one, not Hollywood, but successful enough. Regional films, independent projects, the kind of work that actually turns a profit if you know what you're doing. And this theater? This beautiful, struggling independent theater that showed the films that corporate chains wouldn't touch? I'd been watching it for a while. The movie ended. It was as good as I'd hoped, despite the interruption. I approached the manager as people filed out. That was quite a scene, I said. He laughed tiredly. I am so sorry about that. We don't usually have problems like this, I swear. She's been coming here for a few weeks now, and every single time there's been an issue. Different complaints, different problems, but always something. She's a regular? Unfortunately. And before you ask, we can't ban her. Not without cause. Corporate policy. One incident isn't enough, and she's never actually done anything ban-worthy until tonight. Until tonight, I repeated. So now you can ban her? He sighed. In theory. But she's already threatening to sue. Says she's going to write reviews everywhere, call the news, make this place her personal crusade. And honestly? We can't afford the bad publicity. We're barely hanging on as it is. I handed him my card. I might be able to help with that. Call me tomorrow. He looked at the card, eyes widening slightly as he read it. Wait, you produced Summer's End? And about 15 other films you've probably shown here. This is my favorite theater in the state. I'd hate to see it go under because of one person's vendetta. The next day, the manager called. His name was Robert, and he'd been running this theater for 20 years. He told me everything. Karen had indeed been a problem for weeks. She'd complain about other patrons, about the temperature, about the sound, about the picture quality, about the seats, about the concessions. She'd demand refunds and then refuse to leave. She'd leave terrible reviews online, most of which were clearly exaggerated or outright false. She'd found a hobby in making this theater her personal kingdom of complaints. The thing is, Robert said, she's not always wrong. The seats are old. The sound system isn't top of the line. We're working with equipment that's decades old in some cases. But we do our best, and most people understand that. They come here for the atmosphere, for the films we show that nobody else will. But Karen doesn't care about any of that. She just likes having power over us. Has she been back since the arrest? Charges were dropped. Disturbing the peace, they gave her a warning. And yes, she came back yesterday, demanding an apology, saying we had her falsely arrested, threatening lawsuits again. I did some research. Karen's real name was Karen Mitchell. She had a history. Not a criminal history, but a digital one. She'd been banned from 3 other businesses in town. She had a Yelp profile that was nothing but 1-star reviews and complaints. She'd sued 2 establishments, both cases dismissed. She was what my lawyer friends called a professional complainer, someone who'd figured out that threatening legal action and bad reviews could sometimes get them free things, special treatment, or just the satisfaction of watching people scramble to please them. But here's what else I found. Karen worked in admin at a mid-level company. She rented her home. She drove a leased car. Everything about her life was aggressively average, which isn't a criticism, except that she seemed desperate to feel important, to feel powerful. And she'd chosen this theater as her domain. I made some calls. I have what you might call a diverse portfolio. The production company is one thing, but I also invest in real estate, in small businesses, in opportunities that interest me. And this theater interested me very much. Within a week, I'd arranged a meeting with the property owner. Within 2 weeks, I'd made an offer. Within 3 weeks, I owned the building. Robert almost cried when I told him. You bought the theater? I bought the building, I corrected. The theater is yours to run. But now you have a new landlord, and that new landlord is very interested in making sure this place succeeds. We're going to do some renovations. New seats, new sound system, new projection equipment. We're going to make this the best independent theater in the region. I can't afford. You don't have to. I'm investing in the property. Consider it a long-term business decision. But there is one thing I need you to do. Anything. Karen Mitchell is banned from this property, effective immediately. I'm the property owner, and I'm exercising my right to refuse service. Have your lawyer draft the notice. Make it official. Make it permanent. The notice was served to Karen at her home. A formal trespass warning, legally sound, specifically stating that she was no longer welcome on the property that housed the theater, that any attempt to enter would result in immediate arrest for trespassing. She couldn't sue her way out of it. Property owners have broad rights to deny access. But I knew that wouldn't be enough. Karen would find a way to retaliate, to spread her poison. So I did something else. Something that used every connection I had in ways I'd never quite combined before. I called in favors. I reached out to the other business owners she'd harassed. I contacted a journalist friend who specialized in consumer protection stories. Together, we compiled a profile. Not a hit piece, nothing defamatory, just facts. Every false claim Karen had made, every frivolous lawsuit, every review that contradicted video evidence. We documented her pattern of behavior. The journalist published it as part of a larger piece about the rise of professional complainers and how they hurt small businesses. The article went viral in our region. Local news picked it up. Suddenly, Karen wasn't just known to the handful of businesses she'd terrorized. She was known everywhere. Her employer saw it. Her friends saw it. Her family saw it. And more importantly, every business owner in a 50-mile radius saw it. She was banned from 3 more establishments within days. Not because of anything she'd done to them specifically, but because they recognized the pattern and decided they didn't want to be next. Her favorite restaurant, her regular coffee shop, even the grocery store where she'd apparently made multiple scenes over expired coupons. All gone. All within their legal rights as private businesses. But the theater, that was the crown jewel. Because I didn't just ban her and walk away. I made the theater better. Those renovations I promised? They were extensive. New reclining seats with perfect cup holders. State-of-the-art sound and projection. A remodeled lobby. Better concessions. I even brought in craft beer and wine service. The place became a destination. And then I did something Karen never saw coming. I programmed a film festival. A month-long celebration of independent cinema, featuring some of the films from my production company and others I had connections to. Directors came. Actors came. Critics came. The theater that Karen had spent weeks belittling, that she'd called second-rate and complained about constantly, became the hottest cultural spot in the region. Local news covered it. Regional publications wrote features. And in every article, there was a mention of the theater's history, its struggle to survive, and how it had been targeted by complaints that nearly shut it down. They never named Karen directly, but everyone knew. The timeline matched the viral article. People connected the dots. If you've stuck with me this far, you definitely need to smash that subscribe button. Stories like this don't come along every day, and Karen Eat World has got plenty more where this came from. Trust me, the ending is going to blow your mind. Okay, here we go. Karen tried to fight back. She posted on social media about discrimination, about being targeted, about her rights. But the comments sections were brutal. People who'd encountered her, people who'd witnessed her behavior, they all came forward. Not with lies or exaggerations, just with their own experiences. The digital pile-on was organic and devastating. She tried to come to the theater during the festival. She bought a ticket online, thinking that would give her access. But online ticket purchases require pickup at the box office, and when she arrived, security was waiting. They were polite but firm. She was trespassing, and if she didn't leave, she would be arrested. Again. She left. But she stood outside the theater, trying to hand out flyers about how she'd been mistreated, how this was all a conspiracy against her. Festival attendees walked past her, most ignoring her completely. Some took photos, which ended up online, which only made things worse for her. She became a meme in local circles. The woman yelling outside the theater she'd been banned from, while inside, people enjoyed the exact kind of cultural experience she'd spent weeks trying to diminish. Her employer let her go. Not directly because of the publicity, they were too smart for that, but her behavior had created what they called a hostile work environment. Apparently, she'd been treating her coworkers the same way she treated service workers. The publicity just gave them the push they needed to document everything and let her go. She tried to sue. Of course she did. She sued me, she sued the theater, she sued the journalist, she sued everyone she could think of. Every single case was dismissed. Property owners can deny access. Journalists can report facts. Businesses can ban disruptive customers. She'd done nothing illegal, but neither had anyone else. The system she tried to exploit, the constant threat of lawsuits and complaints, it all fell apart when used against someone with actual resources and legal backing. The festival ended. The theater continued to thrive. I started hosting quarterly events, bringing in more films, more talent, more attention. The theater that had been struggling was now profitable. Robert hired more staff. They expanded their programming. It became exactly what I'd hoped it could be. And Karen? I saw her one more time. 6 months after everything started. I was at a coffee shop 3 towns over, somewhere I'd never been before. She walked in, saw me, and froze. I watched her face cycle through emotions. Anger, fear, frustration, and finally, defeat. She turned around and walked out without ordering. She couldn't even share a coffee shop with me anymore, not because she was banned, but because she couldn't stand to be in the same space with the person who'd dismantled her entire approach to the world. See, Karen's power had always come from being unreasonable in spaces where people valued peace over principle. Where a manager would rather give her a refund than deal with the scene. Where a business would rather apologize than face a bad review. She'd built her entire personality around finding those pressure points and exploiting them. But she'd made one critical mistake. She'd chosen to terrorize something I cared about. And unlike the exhausted managers and small business owners she usually targeted, I had resources. Not just money, though that helped. I had time, connections, patience, and the willingness to play the long game. I didn't get angry. I didn't yell. I didn't make a scene. I just systematically removed every advantage she'd counted on. The property ownership meant she couldn't complain her way back in. The publicity meant she couldn't move on to new targets without them knowing her history. The legal representation meant she couldn't threaten her way to a settlement. Everything she'd built her petty empire on, I'd taken away. Not through some loophole or trick, but by using legitimate business practices, property rights, and the truth. 3 months after I saw her at that coffee shop, I heard she'd moved. Left the area entirely. Started over somewhere new, where nobody knew her name or her history. Maybe she learned something. Maybe she didn't. But she learned that there are some targets you don't choose, some people you don't antagonize, because they might just have the resources and the resolve to not just fight back, but to win so completely that you have to rebuild your entire life somewhere else. The theater held its 1-year renovation anniversary last month. We screened the same film that had been playing the night Karen got dragged out in handcuffs. Full house, not a single complaint, just people enjoying cinema the way it was meant to be enjoyed. Robert gave a speech thanking everyone who'd supported the theater through its struggles. He didn't mention Karen by name. He didn't have to. During the reception afterward, someone asked me why I'd gone so far, why I'd invested so much time and money into dealing with one difficult person. I thought about it for a moment. It wasn't really about Karen, not entirely. It was about the principle that some spaces deserve to be protected. That people who create and nurture cultural experiences shouldn't have to live in fear of the next entitled person who decides to make their life miserable. It was about showing that sometimes the system works, if you know how to use it. That property rights, business law, and simple documentation can be more powerful than any amount of yelling or threatening. That patience and resources beat tantrum and entitlement every single time. But mostly, it was about that moment. The moment I saw Karen's face when she walked into that coffee shop and realized the full scope of what had happened. When she understood that she hadn't just been banned from one theater, but had lost her entire methodology for feeling powerful. When she realized that every business, every establishment, every manager now knew exactly who she was and what she did. The look on her face when she understood that she'd picked a fight with someone who didn't just have the ability to fight back, but the patience to dismantle her entire approach to life, piece by piece, completely legally, and with such thoroughness that her only option was to flee to a new town and hope nobody there ever Googled her name. That moment when Karen Mitchell realized she'd finally met someone who refused to be a victim of her petty tyranny, who instead turned her own tactics, her own constant complaints and threats, into the foundation of her complete and total defeat. That look of absolute, dawning horror as she understood exactly how thoroughly she'd been outplayed. That's why I did it. If you made it to the end of this epic tale of justice, you absolutely have to hit that like button and subscribe to Karen Eat World. We've got tons more stories about entitled people getting exactly what they deserve, and trust me, they just keep getting better. Drop a comment and let me know what you think Karen deserved. Did I go too far, or was this exactly the right amount of petty revenge? See you in the next one.